must be an athlete.
So it's funny because people say that all the time that they think I'm an athlete. I'm actually, so I did my undergrad in Germany. So I never competed at the college level here in the United States. I did play tennis and soccer growing up, but I keep telling people that's the reason why I wasn't a college athlete, because I did my undergrad in Germany, but I don't think I would have been good enough. But I definitely, sports is a big part of my life. I'm still very active, still play tennis, soccer once in a while, go to the gym. So very, very active lifestyle. But yeah, it's an interesting, I get that, I get told that all the time.
So that's interesting from a cultural perspective. I was unaware that you didn't really have competitive sports on the high school and or college level in Germany. What's that about? Has it always been that way?
Yeah, we have competitive sports, but they are completely separate from education. So you would be like on a team for your community, for your town that you grew up in, but it's not implemented into the educational system. So we just go to school to go to school. Like our life really takes place outside of school. Whereas in the United States, it's the opposite. Like your whole life takes place in school. You have like extracurriculars, you have sports. That's very, very different in Germany. So I love that coming to the United States, of how like my life at Bowling Green, like that's why I love Bowling Green so much, is because I got as involved as I could. My whole life was taking place on campus. And of course, sports was a big part of that due to the work I was doing there.
You are like a commercial for Bowling Green.
Oh, they know.
I loved it.
But it's so funny. People always ask me, like, why Bowling Green out of all the schools you've been? And honestly, it was because they offered me full funding. That was the decision that, made me go to Bowling Green. And I was really nervous because I grew up in like one of the major cities in Germany, in Hamburg, very diverse, very progressive. And I was so nervous moving to Bowling Green because Bowling Green, among other things, is known for hosting the National Tractor Pull Championship every year. So that was the first thing I learned about Bowling Green. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is that going to be like? But I kid you not, I still remember like driving down our main street in Bowling Green when I arrived from the airport. And immediately I was like, wow, this is going to be home. And it felt like home. And that feeling never really left. So it's still, it's my home in the United States. And I think about it all the time because it has been such a transformative time in my life, professionally, personally, and I always like to think back for those times.
Wow, that's amazing. So in terms of the NCAA, is that what you said? NCAA, is that located somewhere near Bowling Green?
Somewhat. So the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, the one of the biggest governance organizations for college sport in the US, their headquarters where I was working is in Indianapolis, Indiana. So it's about 3 hours from Bowling Green. I moved after graduation, but it was a perfect new position. I knew, and you can tell like my love for Bowling Green. So I knew leaving Bowling Green was going to be really hard. And I couldn't have left for a better opportunity just because I had such a good experience working at the national office. And I was working in the Office of Inclusion. So the work I'd been doing very locally at Bowling Green, suddenly I had a national outreach and national platform to do that kind of work. And I kind of just hit the ground running. The first project they gave me was to come up with a national social media campaign on diversity and inclusion involving athletes and coaches and administrators. And I just kind of ran with it. It ended up being really successful. I think we were trending at number 8 in the country on Twitter. So it was a really good way for me to kind of enter the national space and do some of the work I've been doing very locally on a national platform. I always talk like positively about my time at the NCAA because that was always my time when I came out as bi. So I hadn't really been out at Bowling Green just because I didn't want that to take away from the program I created, and I didn't want the narrative to be about, oh, this bi guy in sports is doing this initiative. I wanted it to be about the work. But at the NCAA and the Office of Inclusion, I had such a good environment, and it was there where I came out for the first time. And I think that's why also it was such a transformational year for me, because professionally I was just gaining traction. Personally, I had my whole coming out experience throughout that year, and if I do something, I do like 100%. So when I came out to myself, and I decided, okay, it's time to come out, like within 3 months I had come out to all my family, my friends, my colleagues. So and I have had nothing but positive responses. So I'm very fortunate, but I think that's one of the reasons why I've had such a good time in Indianapolis with the NCAA, because they've been very welcoming from the beginning.